Oh, I didn't expect to be seeing you here so late at night, Your Majesty. Please, no need to get up. Do you mind if I sit beside you? Thank you. So, what brings you here, Your Majesty? Were the palace accommodations not to your liking? Yes, you told me you don't like being called Your Majesty. Makes you feel older and more important than you are. Might I gently remind you, you're the crown prince of the Empire of Flames? All the land from the forested slopes of the Anduin on the west to the forges and foundries of the great industrial cities in the heartland, marching right up to our very borders. All of that is part of your dominion, my prince. If anything, your title doesn't quite convey how important you are. Although, I do admit, you're quite young. You're almost the same age as me, are you not? I remember visiting your kingdom when you were just a child. I was with myself, of course, but you still seem to have a softness to your features. I can still see that little boy peeking at me from behind his mother's gown. Sometimes. Hmm? I'm glad you remember me as well. But, my prince, you still haven't answered my question. Why are you in this room of shadows and moonlight by yourself? In this chamber of rippling water? You couldn't sleep? How concerning. I, myself, have occasional episodes of insomnia. Tonight was one of those. In such nights, I too find myself reflecting inside this room. It's peaceful, one of my favorite places in the palace. Small waterfalls trickling down the cliff face bring water into this room. A moat of water surrounds the floor on all sides, and fountains at four corners send fresh water back into the moat. And that water creates shadowy ripples on the ceiling, which almost seem alive in such lonely hours of the night. And the sea breeze ruffles the curtains of that window on the wall every so often. If you cross the moat and brush the curtains aside, you'll see the tiny lights descending down the cliff and dotting the shore, all the way to the dark, endless expansion of blue in the distance. Well, the palace is built into the cliff. This chamber is one of the precious few places with no artificial lighting, only the sun and moon, the greater and lesser light. Oh, you're most welcome, my prince. I happen to enjoy your company as well. You're very intriguing. Yes, you are. This is the first instance in recorded history that a prince of the land of fire has reached out to build peace. You've turned to ink and words instead of fire and metal. For years, your ancestors have followed a policy of aggressive expansion, frequently bringing you into conflict with the other nations, mine included. So, what has changed? Why do you now extend an olive branch to me? Is that really your reason, my prince? You just wish for the fighting to stop? Hmm. Careful, your majesty. Don't let your courtiers hear you saying such things. They wouldn't be thrilled. Even I, myself, have trouble believing it. No winners in war? Hmm. I've certainly won new provinces, new people, new money, weaponry, and glory. I don't want to offend you, but those who actually win wars wouldn't say such things. For quite some time now, my empire has been at war with yours. We've pushed deeper into your domain than ever before. We control the southeastern quadrant of your great nation, do we not? The mines in that region were one of your biggest sources of revenue. All that ore and coal, it must have hurt losing them to me. You used to be more fun than this, you know? Oh, I just can't seem to rile you up anymore. Instead, you sit there and calmly remind me that it has turned into a war, and I'm losing precious resources holding on to so much land, and losing sleep because your armies keep chipping away at my borders, slowly reclaiming what I took. An irritating thorn in my side. But still, Your Majesty, I expected you to keep fighting, even mount a counteroffensive in the west. It's what your late father would have done. You certainly have the means, the mages, the manpower, the largest army on the continent, even if clearly not the most efficient. And there's you, a gifted elemental, able to channel fire from your hands at will. But instead of using that fire to burn corpses, you choose to light the hearth. You say you're tired of fighting. You want peace. You come to me asking for my hand in marriage. No, you're right. I don't seem very offended. Do I? It's because I'm not. I'm not opposed to the idea of a political alliance, of marrying you. I'm even attracted to the thought of taking you as my husband. One of my powers is to know when someone is lying to me, and you've been nothing but sincere so far. There's a need in you, a persistent flame. You burn with the need to set things right in this world. You've tried to bury it, to be indifferent, but that little flame is stubborn. It's a part of you, and even if you deny it yourself, you should hold on to it, my prince. Your wish to do good, most people have given up on it. Oh, yes, yes. You want me to return your lands to you in exchange for exclusive trading rates in my favor and a special strategic relationship between our nations? And to cement it and prevent future wars, you wish to marry me? To seal the deal, as it were? And you're now waiting for my answer. Well, I've already given you my answer, haven't I? I've agreed to the ceasefire. I've given you more of my time and affection than I've given any man. So many men lie when they court. Rosy promises and just as fragile as rose petals. But thorns they hide underneath. Men are like April in love, December in marriage. And before you object, I know, I really shouldn't generalize. You're a man, after all, and my eyes only see the good in you. Whatever demons you may have, you live above them. You're willing to approach your sworn enemy just to stop the needless deaths of your people and hers. But it's not so simple. There are a lot of things I expect from someone who wants to be my husband. Now tell me, my little prince, do you know the story of how this world came to be? No. Your treaties and scriptures only contain a fragment of the truth? Knowledge is precious to my people. For centuries, the closest advisors of the Empress have been the shrine maidens of the sea. They live in that floating silver temple just off the harbor. For generations, the story has been passed down by them. It's said, long ago, there was only a vast ocean underneath the sky. There were no people, no cities, just the ocean and a single small island atop the waves. A young goddess found herself on this island. When her eyes had been closed, there was only darkness, but as she opened them, there was the sea. She looked around, but whoever it was she'd been hoping to find wasn't there. She stared at the waves and the clouds before ascending to the sky. It was the same up there, no signs of life, only an empty world. She'd spend the day flying through the clouds, and at night she'd descend to the island and listen to the ceaseless waves. And thus, the days and nights passed. The goddess explored more and more of her world, but she was gripped with loneliness. She was the only one. There were no others. This loneliness slowly began gnawing at her heart. One morning, at dawn, just as she was about to ascend to the sky again, the waves floated something towards her. It was an empty glass bottle. She picked up the sea's gift, and seeing her face reflected in the glass, she suddenly smiled. She decided to fill the glass bottle, and so she ascended. She gathered water from the sea, soil from the earth, the fire of the stars, the wind in her hair, the light of the sun, the night's darkness, and lightning from the clouds. These things she gathered, and one by one she put them inside the bottle, and then she returned it into the sea. The glass bottle sunk below the waves, and a moment later, 7 nations arose from the sea, the nations that we know of today, the Earth Tribe with their monuments of stone and castles of rock, the Wind Realm with their colorful kites and bamboo groves, the Land of Fire with your great cities of nebulous lights and humming machinery, the Water Kingdom with our majestic ships and forgotten scrolls, and lightning with their towers of crackling thunder. The five that remain, the empires of light and shadow, have been lost to history. Yes, my dear prince, the two empires were locked in a great war for centuries. It's unclear what became of light. Some say it just disappeared one day without a trace. As for shadow, some believe it returned into the sea. That right now, hundreds of fathoms below the waves, and that sea off our shores, the ruins of the once great empire lie sunken on the seabed, slumbering with their secrets for aeons to come. I think I'm slowly starting to understand why you dislike conflict. It was war that led to the destruction of those two great empires. In their heyday, it's said they covered the expanse of an entire continent between themselves, shining as brightly as the sun and moon. What stories they must have had. What legends. What heroes. What, well, I suppose we'll never know. Why do you look troubled? Darling, what is it? Of course I can tell when something's bothering you. My eyes see more than you might think. Why are you sorry? It's okay. You're not responsible for the deeds of your ancestors. The Fire Nation won't return to its old ways with you at the helm. I just know, my little prince, you don't want to continue a legacy of conquest and bloodshed. You only use your fire for protecting what you care about. While I may not agree entirely with your ideals, I do respect you, and I appreciate you coming before me to end hostilities. Your late parents, and mine, they once used to be close, didn't they? Before the war began a few years ago. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't mind returning to the lavish parties and ball dances and summer festivals of those days. In any case, I'll soon be releasing the prisoners of war we captured. In fact, I had your friends released a few days ago. We actually treat our prisoners well, so you don't need to worry. Although, it seems we might have treated your friends a little too well. They're currently in that temple off the shore, and they're in no hurry to leave. From what I hear, they rather enjoy the company of my beautiful shrine maidens. That sounds like them. Well, they are your friends, after all, my prince. Oh, I mean nothing by it. Hmm? What happened to the goddess? Well, let's see. She wasn't lonely anymore. That terrible feeling was gone. Her world finally had life, color, and sound. But she did eventually leave this world behind. I think she grew tired of all the conflict among humans. We are very good at that, aren't we? I'm pretty sure she married one of the mortals, though, because my family has descended from her. She's the goddess we worship in our temple, a beacon of hope, wisdom, and strength. Her blessings have flowed into both the royal family and our trusted advisors. How sweet. Many wouldn't have believed me so readily, you know. But you're not wrong. One of the reasons my maidens and I appear so beautiful and seem to glide as we walk, to borrow your expression, well, it's in part because of her. The other reason is good skincare. We've always been adept at channeling water, causing tidal waves and whirlpools and tsunamis, as well as calming the storms and seas. Those are also her gifts. Oh, you've heard the rumors, have you? It is true. I can turn into a giant sea dragon whenever I want. Well, I wouldn't say whenever I want. It drains quite a bit of energy. But yes, maybe I'll show you in the future. Just don't tell everybody, okay? You won't believe how many suitors have run away after learning I can turn into a dragon. It's apparently such a deal breaker. Oh? And why don't I have to worry anymore? I have you now? Well, well. You seem very confident I'm going to marry you, little prince. Oh, what a spoiled young prince, taking my affections for granted. I told you, there's a lot I expect from somebody who wants to be my husband. If men are insecure, women can be inconsistent. Don't you know our hearts may change at a moment's notice? Just like the sea? Calm at one instant, stormy the very next? And what makes you so sure I'm not like that? All right. Good. Good answer. Very, um, convincing. You know, I was going to refuse your nation's proposal for peace. I wasn't going to get married to some prince I didn't even know. I almost discarded the letter, but then something made me stop. I saw that it was you they expected me to marry. I only agreed to hear you out because I remembered you. Yes, we've met more than once in the past, but this was nearly a decade ago. I think your family was hosting this grand event in the Land of Fire. Those were the years of fleeting peace. Despite tensions, royals and nobles from all the nations attended the event. The decor was lavish, the drinks were heady, and the room was full of strangers in extravagant dresses. I wore a long blue dress, the color of the summer ocean. Sparkling gemstones lined the fabric like pearls, and my glass heels rang quietly across the hardwood floor as I walked. I danced, perhaps, with 3 or 4 boys over the course of the evening. Their eyes seemed smitten. Their words were pretty, but really wasn't listening. Everything was smooth, hazy, and distorted. It was a night to make memories, not lovers. There was air inside, but no wind. The soft lightning and fragrant perfumery became too much, and I strode out of the halls into the night beyond. I walked around the gardens of your estate, saw the flowers with flickering interest, and then sat down under the fountain, listening to the trickling water. The moon was obscured by clouds, and I was alone. It was quiet. I closed my eyes, and I'd nearly fallen asleep to the sound of water when somebody's footsteps sounded quietly on the grass. There was somebody else in the shadows, and I sat down on the opposite end of the fountain. I squinted my eyes to see, but the night was dark, and the moon was obscured by clouds. All I could see was a figure sitting under the fountain, and then a small flame danced over the palm of their outstretched hand. Warm and in its light, I saw your face, brooding, pensive, and yet your eyes. Something raged behind them. The light from the fire and the shadow of the night washed over your features, but your eyes were beyond their reach. At odds with the world, you stared into the flames for a long time, and I watched you. The clouds left the moon, and the water of the fountain glistened in the moonlight, as did the gemstones on my dress. The wind carried the sound of music from inside the halls, faint, a melody of cellos and violins and piano, and the water kept trickling. It took me a while to notice the flames had disappeared. You were looking at me from across the fountain, and I can now see your face clearly in the moonlight. There were no words between us. The seconds passed, and then, all of a sudden, you were smiling at me. Your eyes seemed to have calmed. They were soft, and before I realized it, I was smiling back at you. Neither of us stopped smiling or spoke. The moon shined down all around us, and you dropped your eyes, unwilling to meet my gaze, and you slowly walked back inside the halls. There was still the ghost of a smile on your lips, or perhaps the ghost was in my eyes. I listened to the trickling fountain until you were gone, and then slowly I rose, my blue dress swishing and rippling like water. I walked around your gardens for what remained of the night. I only came to know several months later that you were the son of the ruling king and queen. I now had a name and identity to give to your face. But even after that, you still remained a ghost. A specter that sometimes came to haunt me when I couldn't sleep and would find myself alone in this very room. It seems, sweetness, that my ghost has returned to me. Well, I'd advise you to get some sleep now. You have a long day tomorrow since you're so fixated on marrying a sea dragon. I might as well show you around my capital city. What? Do you need me to escort you back to your room because you're scared of the dark? Well, you should have told me earlier. Here, you can hold on to my hand if you like, and I'll be happy to. Oh, don't be like that. I was only teasing. Ah, I know how brave you are, but I'd still like you to hold my hand. Thank you. Now, let's get you back into bed, my prince.